Hi witches, welcome to the channel, thank you for watching. I'm Ren, the Cemetery Witch, and today I'm going to be reviewing Witchfest Midlands. My husband and I went to Witchfest Midlands last weekend, and so I'm going to give you my personal thoughts on it, explain what it is exactly, and just basically give you the rundown so that if you've never heard of it before or you've been considering going, then you know exactly what to expect. So if you're intrigued to hear more, then this is a video for you. Keep watching. Welcome back everybody, thank you for being here, thank you for watching. So as I said in the intro, my husband and I went to Witchfest last weekend, and so I thought it would be a really fantastic idea to review it so that you guys can see what it's all about and you can get an understanding of the layout of the day and how the festival works, so that if you've heard of it before and you weren't sure whether to go, or if it's something you're just hearing of now and you want to plan a trip, then you've got all the information that you need. Now, I do have to do a disclaimer at the beginning of this video. I don't have any footage to show you. Now, that isn't because I'm lazy or because I was just having such a fantastic time that I didn't get to film anything. It's because Witchfest have a strict no photography policy. So they've been doing Witchfest for over 20 years and they've always had this policy. They have an events photographer who takes pictures of the speakers and of the building and the general setup, but no pictures are ever published with patrons in the background. And Witchfest and the Children of Artemis have chosen to do this to safeguard their patrons, to keep people safe, because some people are still in the broom closet. Some of their friends and family don't know that they consider themselves to be a witch or a pagan, and it is to avoid issues there. So I really like the fact that they've taken this decision and they've stood by this all these years. I don't think they've got any intention of changing this, and of course it makes it much harder for them to market their event without any photographs. So I think well done to the Children of Artemis / Witchfest. It actually means that you don't bother using your phone all day and you actually do immerse yourself in what is a great day out. So that is the disclaimer at the beginning. There are no images for me to show you. I didn't take any photos at all on the day as requested. So what is Witchfest? Witchfest is the largest witchcraft festival in the world, and it's run over a series of events. We went to Witchfest Midlands, and there is a bigger Witchfest International in November later this year. And once upon a time, they used to have Witchfest International, and then they'd have smaller Witchfests. So, for example, Witchfest England, Witchfest Scotland, and I think, but I'm not sure, possibly Witchfest Wales. We went to Witchfest Midlands at the weekend. I don't know if this is their first one or, no, I think it might be their second one. There was one that was due to be on during the pandemic, but we never made it because of the pandemic. But this is the first time that we've done Witchfest Midlands, but I have done Witchfest England and Witchfest International many times before. I don't think Witchfest England happens anymore. It has all been just put into Witchfest International. I think things have changed with the economic climate over the years. Witchfest International used to be huge, and then you did have the other regional sort of variations. Nowadays it's just Witchfest International, and whilst it is big and whilst those other events don't run, it's not as big as it used to be. But of course, you know, we know who to blame for that. Things have been getting steadily worse over the years in terms of the money that people have and the opportunities they have available to them. But Witchfest Midlands was a lovely little warm-up for the one later on in the year. So Witchfest has been going for over 20 years. I think they're nearing their, well, not nearing their third decade, but they've definitely been going for over 20 years. I've been going since I was 18. And Witchfest is organised by its sister organisation, the Children of Artemis. The Children of Artemis actually came first. They were a ritual group until about 1995, when they became a public membership organisation, and then from about 1999 to 2000 is when they really started to expand with a website and events and a magazine called Witchcraft and Wicca, and this is when I started to get involved with the Children of Artemis and the event Witchfest, because I was 18 and I was able to do this at this stage. So the Children of Artemis is staffed by volunteers, and both Witchfest and the Children of Artemis, they're not-for-profit organisations, and they raise funds for pagan causes within the community. So it's well worth supporting them by going to these events and by getting a ticket and becoming involved. So first of all, I'll tell you about where we went, what the venue was like, what the parking was like, all those kinds of things. And then I'm going to tell you about the talks that we listened to. There were several talks on at once at each time, so you had to pick one, but that meant that there was really something for everyone. So at 11 o'clock, for example, there were 3 different talks that you could go to, and at 12 o'clock there were 4 different talks that you could go to. So it did mean that occasionally you might miss one, but I think this way of doing things works really, really well, because it just means that there's literally something for everyone. And if you're with your partner or with a group of friends, you can just split up and go and do your own thing. So we arrived at the venue about 10 minutes before the doors were opened, and we were parked practically outside, which is unheard of. So we were at Staffordshire University, which is in Stoke-on-Trent. That's the venue they chose for Witchfest Midlands, and it was about an hour and a half from us. And it was £1.10 parking for the entire day, which you could do with change or using your mobile phone. So for us to park pretty much right outside the venue was incredible and was really, really helpful. I think this kind of gave a nod to the kind of numbers that were there. At the beginning, when we were first there, it didn't seem like there were tons of people, but we have to remember this is a regional event. And as the day went on, more people arrived. I'm guessing other people that had to travel quite a long distance. So when we were stood outside the building, thankfully it was a warm, sunny day. The people with the Witchfest VIP tickets, they were able to go in first. And there was a little bit of confusion. There wasn't like 2 distinct queues, and there was a lot of shouting about who was a VIP, and quite a few of us were stood around sort of wondering when we could go in and where we should stand and things like that. So there was a little bit of chaos and confusion. Witchfest VIP gives you, I think, discounted tickets, money off items that are bought there, so like official merchandise, entry into a sort of a private bar. I'm going to talk at the end about how I feel about this sort of 2-tier system. I don't really think that having a Witchfest VIP ticket made a great difference in terms of entry. We didn't have those special tickets and we were in 5 minutes after everyone else. I think it probably makes a bigger difference when you go to Witchfest International. And whilst I'm not a VIP now, I have been in the past, but I'm going to talk about that at the end when I sort of sum up and give my conclusion. And it was at this stage when we were entering that we were given the Witchfest Midlands programme, which was really, really helpful. It tells you where all the talks are, what time they're on, and it even suggested lunch and shopping break windows so that you could really organise your day. So that was really, really helpful and wonderful. We didn't have to pay for that. That was just included in the ticket price. And then it's just got information on the back about the Children of Artemis, join Witchfest VIP, about their magazine, their shop, and the international do at the end of the year. So that was absolutely brilliant. So we got inside and we realised that the event was spread over 3 buildings. Because we were at a university, they had to find a venue, obviously, to host lots of different talks at the same time, have areas where people could eat and drink and go to the toilet, and so they chose Staffordshire University. The university buildings were beautiful. They were really well equipped, they were light, they were airy, they had gender neutral toilets, there were lots of vending machines about, they had a campus shop, and they had a cafe in each building, and it was very spacious and very clean. I do wonder how well having the different buildings work for people with disabilities, for people like myself who don't use a wheelchair and don't want to use a wheelchair. but all the extra walking makes you really, really tired. But then when I thought about the venue that Witchfest International is held at, so that's held at Fairfield Halls in Croydon, there is quite a bit of walking between room because it's in a huge sort of theatre building. So it was dry, it was sunny, so that didn't make a difference. But I think if it had been really, really chucking it down, I think that might have been an issue for some people, because there was you could see each building from each building, but I think maybe that might have been an issue for some people. For us it was fine, but yeah, we did quite a few steps that day. But yeah, fantastic venue, and I just couldn't believe how close we had got parked to the venue, the sort of the main venue building. So we entered the main building and we sat down ready for the opening blessing, and we were given a really lovely warm welcome. I have to say that the talk at the beginning was a little jokey, and it almost felt like the person giving it wasn't taking things particularly seriously. Now, I'm aware that there is quite a hardcore group associated to the Children of Artemis who are very much a family, and I feel that this jokiness was perhaps understood by them. But if you were someone attending the festival for the first time, I think possibly it might have felt like this wasn't being taken very seriously. And when you've spent £50 nearly on a ticket, I think that was a bad introduction. The crowd definitely know each other, and so I think these comments would have been better absorbed by those people. There was a comment about the car parking kiosk not working, and again the speaker said, well, that's universities, which yes is funny and is, you know, the truth, but equally I just felt that that was like a bit of a jab almost at the venue, who I think were very, very generous for having us, but you don't know what's going on in the background at all, and we were given a very, very warm welcome nonetheless. So it was lovely to go in, sit down and hear somebody talk enthusiastically and with passion about Witchfest and everything it stands for, and about keeping the Witchfest magic alive. So that was brilliant, and we were given plenty of time to get ourselves familiarised with the building, find the toilets, get a coffee and find a seat and sit down. I found the chairs really, really uncomfortable, really difficult for me with my particular condition to sit in, but that is neither the university's fault or Witchfest's fault. It's just one of those things. So that, I did kind of hope that we wouldn't be going to too many talks in that particular room, but that was absolutely fine, and most people would have gotten fine with that. I did notice that they'd set the stalls up around that room, and what we didn't realise until we went to the other talks was that the other stalls were in the other buildings, and I think it would have been really nice to have the stalls all in one place. And also, if there were people at the back talking to the stall holders while a talk was going on, you couldn't hear very well. That said, I don't think really there was a main area that would have fit everyone in. I mean, Fairfield Halls, where we have Witchfest International, is a huge building. So they have got huge areas to have lots and lots of stalls. But obviously at university, it was different, but it was quite nice though, because each time you went for a talk there were stalls, and it was only in the main room where there was no separation between the stalls and where you were sitting to listen to your talk. In the other buildings there was like stalls in like little foyer areas, and then they had the separate room where the talk was. So even though there were stalls at each location, there was a little bit more separation there, but in the main building there wasn't a separation. So that was a little bit tricky, but you know, great stall holders, loads on offer to look at. I'm sure there are some people that spent all their money, lots of lovely things to buy, so that was really, really awesome. So the first talk we went to was held by Merlin Hearn. Merlin is the guy that does all the organisation. I think it's him and a lady called Kath. They work together to do everything. And I think it was so generous that Merlin did a talk. And I don't know how he managed to do it, because he must have had so much to get done on that day. The fact that he managed to, you know, go and do a talk for an hour is absolutely fantastic and so generous. So thank you, Merlin. The talk was called Mould Your Future from the Book of Souls. So it was about using tarot imagery in spell work and how you can use that imagery to manifest what it is that you desire. There were a few tech issues. At first, it didn't look like he was going to be able to get his presentation up, and his presentation was very much a visual one. I don't know if this was a new venue or whether it was new software or lack of staff to help the Witchfest staff or what, but it didn't matter, and he was going to do the talk no matter what. So managed to get it up on screen and it looked fantastic. So that was really, really enjoyable. That got us started and in the mood for more. So we went back to the main building for our second talk. We chose Ragnarok, which was a talk by Pete Jennings. And this guy is really, really funny. He started off saying, who of you remembers Fraggle Rock? And then he said, and then what about Crocodile Rock by Elton John? And then he said, after that came Ragnarok. So I was laughing the whole way through at him. It's not very often people manage to tickle me, but he was really, really funny. So he went through the characters in Norse myth, how they relate to Ragnarok. He spoke about the various halls of Valhalla, who is sort of the head of those and what happens in those. He looked at the creation of the world and the 9 worlds of the ash tree, and he was just really funny and engaging. And my husband bought one of his books, which he gladly signed. So if you're into any kind of Norse myth and material, then check out Pete Jennings. He's written quite a few books, and if you ever get the opportunity to see him speak, then do. He's really, really knowledgeable, and I just found just so funny. So next we went on to a talk by Professor Ronald Hutton, and you just know that Professor Ronald Hutton is not going to disappoint. He never ever does. He did a talk on modern vampires. My husband couldn't really understand why he did a talk on vampires. How does that tie in with witchcraft? But I think that it's just one of those topics that, that most people are going to enjoy. And I think he's done so many talks at various different Witchfest events that he's probably stuck. He's an extremely learned man. He's an absolute joy to watch and to listen to, but I would think that his talks on witchcraft, both modern and ancient, and archaeology, I just think that he's done those talks again and again and again. So I think perhaps that's why he chose vampires, and it does kind of tie in with witches. Witches were thought to be fantasy creatures. Obviously we're not, and I would think that most witches have an interest or a slight interest in things like vampires and werewolves and stuff like that. So he spoke about, in terms of vampire culture, there being an hourglass shape with Bram Stoker's Dracula at the waist, and he has done a talk before, kind of leading up to Bram Stoker's Dracula, and then this talk was a sister talk to that one, and this was the first time he'd done it, and it was about modern vampires and vampires in popular culture and things after Bram Stoker's Dracula. So he spoke about Bram Stoker's wife, how she wouldn't sell the film rights or give up the film rights for it, and how people tried to get around that and to make Dracula, or make a vampire film sort of centered on Dracula or based on Dracula. So that was really, really interesting. We heard all about some other films like Carmilla, for example. We heard about Ingrid Pitt, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Salem's Lot, Stephen King, those sorts of things. And it was really, really interesting and engaging. And Professor Ronald Hutton just never fails to entertain. He's always worth it. And I think he is one of the things that makes Witchfest as brilliant as it is. So then we had some lunch at some point. I can't remember exactly where we had that. That might have been just before Professor Ronald Hutton, but the next talk we saw was on Welsh Gods and Goddesses by Mara Starling. So I was really interested to see this one. I'd never heard Mara talk before, other than the work that I've seen on her Instagram page where we're connected. And I have to say, this was my favourite talk. Mara was so engaging and passionate and enthusiastic, and it was just a real joy to hear her speak. And whilst there's nothing wrong at all with having notes, Everybody had notes. Mara was the one talk that I saw where she didn't have any notes at all. And she was just on stage talking about her childhood, her immersion in the stories of Wales and the mythology, and her passion just shone through. So really, really enjoyed her talk. She comes alive when she's talking, and she told us about the various gods and goddesses and how some of those have been twisted by modern pagans and modern paganism into images that aren't true to their original sort of shape and form. So we heard about Rhiannon, we heard about Ceridwen, and we heard about some others that I can't pronounce, and I don't want to be offensive and get them wrong, but you get the idea. So afterwards I went and said hello to Mara. She was good enough to stand and talk to people, and she gave me a hug because I'd introduced myself, and she's following my page as well, and so that was really, really lovely. So for me, that was actually the most enjoyable talk of all. Sorry to the other people. I've seen Professor Ronald Hutton talk lots of times, and he's always very enjoyable, but it was just nice to see some other people. And yeah, it was just a talk that perhaps, you know, I didn't maybe think I would connect with the most, and yeah, not being Welsh and not knowing anything about Welsh mythology, but yeah, I just really enjoyed Mara. She's an excellent speaker. So if you ever get the chance to see her, go and check that out. Then talk 5, we were supposed to be seeing Kat Treadwell, which was a talk called Pagan Power, and no one turned up. So we were in the room a little bit early. We got there about 10 minutes early, and then we waited half an hour past the time that she was due to be speaking. So we waited for 40 minutes. And nobody turned up, and nobody turned up to say that this speaker hadn't turned up. I know there was a few speakers that didn't turn up on that day for various reasons, and I hope everybody's okay. I thought it would have been nice, it would have been polite for somebody to come and let us know, but I've since learned that Witchfest was quite understaffed this year, and it's all volunteers that run Witchfest, so no harm done. But because it was towards the end of the day, it did mean we had a really, really long wait to get into the main part of the building for the raffle and the evening entertainment. So that was a little bit disappointing. However, it was a beautiful day and we were parked right by the venue. So we went and sat by our truck and we laid on the grass in the sunshine. So, you know, no harm done. But it meant we couldn't get into the toilets. I don't know what was happening with the other buildings. There was a cafe open, so there was probably a toilet attached to that, I think. But it just meant that we had quite a big window because we'd picked the wrong talk, essentially, when no one turned up. And we didn't want to go into another room to one of the other talks and walk in late because that would have been really rude. So, yeah, there was a bit of a gap there, but that's fine. It was good to have a rest and to have a break. So, yeah, we were shut out for a while. They tidied the place up a bit, got ready for the raffle and for the evening entertainment. So at 6:30 they had the raffle. Now the raffle was for the Witchfest VIP ticket holders. So as someone who doesn't hold one of those tickets, yes, you might think that's an incentive to get one, but really it just felt very exclusive and kind of felt like we were left out of some of Witchfest stuff. Now, I say this as somebody who used to have the VIP ticket, and I must say, even back then, I felt like having 2 camps wasn't that enjoyable and it felt a bit sort of exclusive. I'm sure it really, really works. I know that those people, I think, keep Witchfest going and keep Children of Artemis going, and they're all part of quite a close sort of family unit. I did feel like there was a little bit of clickiness, but I think I only noticed that because I move in witchcraft circles and I know some of the characters and just some of the things I saw going on. Do not let it put you off if you've never been before. I don't think it will even be on your radar, but I just felt like there should be a raffle for everybody, and it would have been nice to have had the opportunity to buy tickets for that raffle. I might have my information wrong and I missed something somewhere. Maybe we could buy tickets, but I do think the raffle was for the VIPs. So that just made us feel a little bit left out, but it's fine. We had a fantastic day, and we're so grateful to the organisers for putting on such a brilliant day. And if you have found a process that works for you, then honestly that's fine. You know, I'm not precious about these things. So after the raffle, we had Shell, the alternative folkie. She was absolutely brilliant. So as the name suggests, she is alternative, but she is a folk musician. And she said that for many years, she tried to keep these two aspects of her personality separate, but then realised that that just wouldn't work, and why not just be herself and combine the two. So she played some beautiful music. She was up on stage by herself, playing guitar and using various drums and using her beautiful voice. And I must admit, by this part of the day, I was tired and I'd really got into it, and yeah, I was getting a bit teary. I won't deny, I was getting a bit teary. Her songs and her music were bringing up some things in me, and it was just so lovely to be out and to be surrounded by like-minded people. I said to my husband that usually when you go out somewhere, if you imagine the people around you believing in fairies, it would be like no one but yourself. But when you go to Witchfest and somewhere like that, when you think about that, you think that most of the people surrounding you will believe in fairies. So it's just really lovely to be with like-minded people. So after Shell, the alternative folkie, we had Dave the Bard. Dave the Bard is a wonderful musician. He lives down on the South Downs. He's down near Brighton, I believe. And he and I, we share some mutual friends. I've met him briefly, but follow him on Facebook and Instagram and things. And his work is a mixture of his own and old folk songs that he has, you know, put his own spin on. And he is just so wonderful. He's such a lovely human being, and he's well known in pagan circles for just being a really genuinely nice bloke. His music is wonderful, it's uplifting, it's heartwarming, and he really gets people involved. He got everyone to stand up and link arms while he played Wild Mountain Thyme, which is just such a beautiful folk song. If you've never heard it before, look up Dave's version or find another version. It's a beautiful Scottish song about going out into the countryside and picking wild, or pulling, depending on which one you go with, picking Wild Mountain Thyme. And it's just so lovely. And I have to admit, I cried most of the way through. I can feel my voice breaking even now thinking about it. My husband's eyes were filled with tears, and just absolutely fantastic. You couldn't really finish on a better note. I would say if you are considering getting a ticket for Witchfest, then Professor Ronald Hutton and Dave the Bard alone make it really worthwhile. So we paid £49.10, I think it was, for the tickets, then with an admin fee on top. And really that's worth it alone for Dave the Bard and Professor Ronald Hutton. And if you think about buying tickets to go and see people like that individually, then you would probably, all right, you might not pay £50, but you might pay half of that. So when you consider that you get varied witchcraft talks all day, you get entertainment. So we had Shell the Folkie and Dave the Bard, so we had two lots of music. And then you have access to all these stalls, and you're bound to have gone home learning something. That's the point. And you've got the opportunity to socialise with other like-minded folk. It's really worth the ticket. So I think I'm just going to generally sum up now how we felt about the day. So we had a really enjoyable day. At first, when we first arrived, I don't know if it's just because it was like the change in building, and perhaps we were really set in our ways like that, and we were like not sure about the layout being over 3 different buildings. And we thought that £49.10 seemed like a lot, but on reflection, it's not a lot of money. These people, the Children of Artemis and the Witchfest crew, they they cross over. They're two sister organisations that are part of the same thing. They work on a volunteer basis. They didn't get paid for that, and they worked so hard. And like I've just said, just to see Dave the Bard and Professor Ronald Hutton alone, you know, £49.10, well worth it for everything you get. And at the end of the day, you look back and go, yeah, that was brilliant. There were owls outside as well. I forgot to mention them. There was a little show that we watched, and we learnt about some different birds of prey. So it was so worth the ticket price. I think we just had to get our head around the fact that it was smaller, and it was smaller because it was a regional event. And it's definitely made me feel enthusiastic about going to Witchfest International in November. We've not done that for a very long time. I used to do it a lot when I was younger. I used to do it every single year. And then I stopped for a little while because they had the same bands and the same people talking. But I think in recent years, as Witchfest is growing and is becoming more accessible, we have the internet and we're getting to know more people, I think the variety is much bigger now, and they try and get as many different people on as they can to their various events. I don't like the VIP setup. I don't like the feeling of this exclusivity. I don't like it as someone that's left out of, you know, not being a VIP, who gets left out of stuff. But equally, when I was a VIP, I didn't like the fact that my friends were left out. So I could go into the bar, but what was the private bar, but what was the point, because my friends couldn't. Now, I do appreciate there's probably a reason why they've got this two-tier system, and it's probably something that keeps it going, in which case, you know, fair dues. It's up to me, isn't it? If I don't like it, then I can join. But I just feel that for an event that is about building community and serving community, it would be nice to feel that everyone were involved, and rather than an us and them. But that's not a major criticism. That's just a personal viewpoint, and I think it's really brilliant that they have found a formula that works for them and for the community. And you know, it obviously works doing it that way because they've always done it that way. I just wonder that if there wasn't this like two-tier system, maybe more people might get involved. I don't know, but then maybe it's the two-tier system that's keeping the event running. So not a criticism by any means, just my personal feeling. A huge thanks to the organisers. You do a fantastic job. You give up your time. You do this in service to the pagan community, and we really appreciate you. And I would absolutely love to talk there if I got the opportunity. So this is by no means a negative review. This is just my own personal thoughts, being authentic, sharing my view. I would like to have seen the stalls not around the main room, the LRV room, because it did, when I was listening to some of the talks in there, I had the background noise of stall holders talking to people, and they had the mead bar in the corner as well, and when people were getting a drink and stuff and they were chatting or ordering, it was quite difficult to hear. But, you know, just a minor thing. And in some ways it was quite nice having the stalls set out in the different areas. But I am looking forward to Witchfest International if we decide to go. We have spoken about it. It's nice having the shopping all in one place. But of course, you know, with these regional events, you have to work with what you've got. We didn't find any hot food anywhere. I don't know if that was just us being unlucky or unobservant. There were plenty of like sandwiches and rolls, and we did discover in one of the bars in the evening, there was somewhere that just did like some basic chips and things. But we would really have liked to have had a healthy hot meal. But again, you can't have everything. It must be so difficult trying to find a venue to put this kind of event on. And I really liked the venue. I thought it was lovely, and it was really nice to be in a university atmosphere. I'd not been in a university for many years. There's the little gap in the evening where they booted everyone out of the main hall, where they did the sound check and got ready for the evening. I feel that perhaps isn't so helpful. But then going on my point about food, maybe that would have been a good opportunity for us to go for a wander and go into Stoke-on-Trent and find somewhere to eat. That's what we used to do in Croydon. And, you know, we are adults, we could have just gone somewhere. But we didn't. I was really, really tired. I was struggling by this point. So we stayed close to our vehicle. But it was okay because it was warm and it was sunny. And, you know, just, yeah, you have to work with what you've got. I did hear some of the uni staff sort of whinging about working and saying, oh, we get to knock off in 10 minutes, I can't wait. But that is not the problem of the university, and it's not the, you know, it's not the COA's fault or Witchfest's fault. That's just a couple of individuals, just, you know, young people working in a university. But overall, I just think this was a wonderful, wonderful warm-up for Witchfest International, which is on the 18th of November, back at Fairfield Halls, which I've not seen since it's been refurbed. It's well worth going to. And if you're not sure about going to a regional event, I don't think there's many of them. I think Witchfest Midlands is sort of in the minority. I can't think of any that I've heard of, but you know, I haven't necessarily been paying attention over the last 5 years. But if you're not sure, then go to Witchfest International. If you want to give it a go and you want to see what Witchfest is like, go to Witchfest International, Croydon, which I think is Surrey, but actually it's London really. And you will have a fantastic, fantastic time. There's a huge variation of speeches. There's pagan and witchy shopping, there's music, usually at the Fairfield Halls they have lots of music on, there's usually a few bands. They used to have the Dolmen on quite regularly, so in an evening you might see the Medieval Babes, the Dolmen and Dave the Bard. It's just truly, truly brilliant. So yeah, so just thank you really. Thank you to the organisers. I'm aware that you were short-staffed and you had lost some of your speakers, and really you couldn't tell. As someone who was attending, you couldn't tell. And it was just a fantastic day out and we had a lovely time, and it just went far too quickly. And we're really, really looking forward to going later on in the year if we decide to go, depending on our own personal circumstances and situations and stuff. But yeah, absolutely fantastic. And I just hope that this comes across as a fair review. I wanted to include how I felt about everything, but even on the slightly more negative points, it's, you know, you are never going to get an event right that pleases every single person, and there are always going to be bumps and challenges. So, and even though I personally don't like the two-tier system, I understand that there's a probably really good reason why it's in place. It's just my own personal preference. But perhaps that maybe is encouragement for you guys if you are going to go to a Witchfest to become a VIP, because there are benefits to doing that. So yeah, so just thank you ever so much. And again, if anyone from the Children of Artemis, who I was a member of for many, 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 many years, I haven't been in recent years, but I've let my Pagan Federation membership lapse as well, and it's just life admin that I've not got on top of. I really should be joined back up to those two. But yeah, if you're watching from the Children of Artemis or Witchfest, I would love to do a talk sometime. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this video. If you've got any questions on this, feel free to ask me either down in the comments or find me over on Instagram and drop me a message, or email me. You'll find my email address somewhere. I'll give you as much help as you can if you've got questions about going. And if your question is, should I go? My answer would be yes. Even if you just do it once to try it, but yes, do Witchfest International. But yeah, thank you Witchfest Midlands. It was brilliant. Okay, thanks so much for watching. If you've got this far, well done. If you're enjoying this video, or you've enjoyed this video, then please feel free to subscribe. And if you hit the bell notification icon, you'll never miss another video. And I'm going to go now, and I'm wishing you lots of love and blessings, and I'll speak to you soon.